Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about, after the news you need to know about. We run you through the fan Q&A, we answer fans' questions. Can't wait to talk about this. All the stuff that happened throughout the draft. It was, the offseason was really leaning on this. Because as much as, this offseason has been crazy, a lot of people have hated it. The draft was really the saving grace. So we're going to get into this. But we'll start with the negative news story, referring to Jalen Ramsey. This news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Rams have interest in trading for Jalen Ramsey. A whole bunch of reports have come out since this article came out. Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter. Doesn't really seem like a trade's going to happen anytime soon. Barry Jackson has tweeted a bunch about this, even asked Chris Greer at the press conference, the draft press conference, about reconciling with Jalen Ramsey. Chris's response was super, that's not going to happen. It really seems like the two are splitting for sure. Whether it's going to happen now or later, who knows? There was a little bit of part of me that was like, maybe we could figure it out. That only hit me after the draft because we'll talk about it, but the Dolphins really didn't address that position that at all, really. So Chris also said, and Chris Greer, the GM, also said that they're still open to trading and making some kind of move at that position, which I thought was interesting because he didn't have to say that. So maybe we'll see a trade soon. They can. I don't know who they would trade with. I don't really. Corners are a very valuable position. I don't really know who they could acquire. Who knows? Before anybody even thinks about it, Xavier Howard's so far out of the question. He's not the player he used to be. But we'll see what they do. I don't think maybe Kendall Fuller's still out there. I don't remember if he signed or not. And we'll talk about it when we get into the draft more on corner. But yeah, it doesn't seem like Jalen Ramsey's coming back. Seems like I wonder what happened. I really do. Jalen Ramsey always kind of seemed not happy here. So yeah, Jalen Ramsey just kind of seems like not a very happy person. But let's get into the draft, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll start with the first pick, which we'll just get into it. So the first pick, 13th overall pick, the Miami Dolphins selected Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle from Michigan. Now, I want to be honest with everybody. Because the first day of the draft, Thursday, is only one round, I did not like this pick. The reason I didn't like it is because there was a lot of rumors that the Dolphins were going to go guard at that position out of North Dakota State University. I can't remember his name's escaping me. Had a really great Senior Bowl. So I was like, oh my God, I was getting excited. I was like, we're going to actually pick a guard in the first round. So I was so lost. And then the Patriots took Will Campbell, who was one of my favorite players in the draft. So that was dead. So I was so locked into offensive line or corner at that pick that it didn't really matter if we drafted. It didn't matter. If we didn't draft one of those two positions and it wasn't a player that I liked, I was going to be disappointed. And especially if it wasn't an offensive lineman, because I really do feel like that's the missing piece to this team. And we could really do, I think, really well if we can fix that position. So when we picked Kenneth Grant, by the way, who is a massive need, but in the order of massive needs, I was like offensive line and corner are probably, to me, bigger needs than a defensive tackle in the first round. We'll get into the other draft picks here in a second, but I was a little bit disappointed we took a defensive tackle. Having said that, I really like Kenneth Grant. He's a really good player. I think the best thing, he's a giant man. And we've talked about this before. And this is why I love this draft so much. The theme of, hey, the Dolphins have been dominated in the trenches ever since Mike McDaniel got here. The fault of all of those teams have been, we cannot win on the line of scrimmage against good football teams. That is why our record sucks against the upper echelon teams in the NFL. That has to be addressed. For whatever reason, Chris Greer didn't address that the last 2 years. I mean, we did draft Chop Robinson, but he's a pass rusher, and which he ended up being a phenomenal pick. But for the even in free agency, and even like the press conference, Chris was like, "Oh, I signed Connor Williams," and obviously Robert Hunt we drafted. But we really never heavily invested into the offensive line. There was always a hole, depth issues, all kinds of stuff going on. So that's been a big, massive hole. And everybody talks about, oh, this is a track team. We've heard it as Dolphins fans over and over again. But it matters. And it matters on the defensive line too. And we saw that last year where the Dolphins were very inconsistent in the run game. They struggled in the rotation at defensive tackle. Really, really bad. Very thin at that position. So I love this pick for those reasons. Kenneth Grant, at the very least, is going to be a great run defender. Fits the Ravens scheme perfectly. I'm sure Anthony Weaver is the happiest man on the planet. Helps out our linebackers, which we desperately needed as well, which is great. And this is a Raven player. This is a Raven pick. This is a phenomenal fit schematically. And not only is he a two-gap player who's going to keep our linebackers clean, which is something that we did not have, but really, even when Christian Wilkins was here, we've never built our defense. We've never had the biggest lines of scrimmage, whether it's the offensive or defensive line, for a long time in Miami. And this guy changes that, which I think is a massive deal. And I'm so happy that we're building our defense in the image of our Ravens team. And this was just a great pick and a step in the right direction. It makes us a bigger, more physical team. Fixes the issues that we've had the last 3 years in trying to compete for a playoff win. Because I feel like that's the first goal, at least for me as a Dolphins fan. I want to see us win a playoff game. We haven't won in over 20 years. And it's time that we fix that. And this is a huge step in that direction. This is in the right direction. And great. And again, like I said, I think the best thing it says is like, okay, we're drafting for the scheme as well. We're building it the right way. Coach Weaver's a phenomenal defensive coordinator. This gives him a great piece. It just makes us a better football team and lets us compete with the better teams in our conference and in the NFL. So this is a great draft pick for all of those reasons. Having said that, he has a very high ceiling too. He's a really great athlete. Everybody's seen the clip of him chasing down, I can't remember who it was. Chases down someone who's much faster than him from behind and makes a tackle. As at his size, he's huge. And so yeah, I love this pick. This is what great organizations do, and I'm really happy with the fit. And he has a lot of upside. A lot of people compared him to Dexter Lawrence, and like I said, at the very least, he's going to be a really great run defender, and that's what the Dolphins needed. And it makes them bigger and stronger up front, makes them a better defense, and you know what? This is another piece that I forgot to mention. It really elevates the defensive line, which I think is a great unit now with the addition of Kenneth Grant. We have great pass rushers. I mean, we have 3 really good pass rushers. Now, I mean, we'll see what happens with Bradley Chubb. And, he was coming off a really good season before he got injured. So hopefully he can come back healthy. Obviously, that's a question mark. But Chop and Jalen, who Jalen's coming off injury too, but that's a great defensive line. And Chop was great. And and you know what? Another thing is that all 3 of those guys are such a good scheme fits in this Ravens defense. So I'm really excited to bully people up front for the first time in a long time on the defensive line, because Kenneth Grant allows them to do that. So to me, this is an A+ pick for me for all of those reasons. And yes, they could have picked a flashier player at this position, I guess, if that's what your gripe is with it. They're really, out of all the defensive tackles, you might say, oh, they could have had this guy or that guy. This is the guy I would have picked if I was picking at this spot. I think this was the best pick they at that position, and I don't think they could have picked anybody better for what they needed. I just, at least that's in my opinion. So this is an A+ pick. And I guess you could argue, well, they passed on like Will Johnson. I actually, to be honest with you, I would rather have Kenneth Grant for the reasons the reason I said. I think, I just think it was more important, and it added to a unit that had already had great edge players, and I think elevates them to a higher stratosphere now. So yeah, in terms of stats, they're not flashy. 6.5 career sacks, 12 TFLs. He had 7 TFLs last year. And again, this is a guy who might not show up on the box score, but makes a huge difference and helps out your team because he keeps your linebackers clean, and he's a dominant run defender. And he has a lot of upside and a lot of potential because he is a great athlete for his size. So great pick. I would have been more upset if, we didn't get who we got in the second round. But, so let's move on to the second round. This pick just is beautiful. It's just, I cannot explain how, hyped up I was. I didn't expect it either because we traded up. I was like, what are we doing? So the Dolphins trade up. They gave up a third-round pick this year with the Raiders, which I know I've seen a lot of people, and let's just say who they picked. So in the second round, the 37th overall pick, the Dolphins pick Jonah Savine. Probably butchering his name. We'll just call him Jonah. Guard out of Arizona. This is the best pick. This is one of my favorite picks we've had, probably since Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips, I loved coming out of college. He was literally my favorite player that year, and we ended up picking him, and that rarely happens. So that pick to me stands out. But Jonah, this might be tied with that. I think a lot of Dolphins fans loved him. He's a great player at the guard position, so I think he's definitely worth the third round pick. He's the missing piece. He now makes this offensive line, and the potential that it has if it stays healthy. This has the most potential out of any offensive line, at least definitely since Mike McDaniel got here. I would say since probably the Unicorn team in 2016, this has the most potential. And this was a huge need. I just talked about it, how we lose every battle in the trenches when it comes to playing the better teams in the NFL. And this is the Dolphins could, if everybody's healthy on the offensive line, the Dolphins can be dominant for the first time since Tua was drafted as a Miami Dolphin on the offensive line, and they can actually win games in the line of scrimmage, which is something that they could not do last year. It was a disaster last year. It was so bad that, it made Mike McDaniel say that we got to get better in the trenches. And this is someone who rarely criticizes his team in public. So, and I didn't think, we don't have to go down the Chris Greer thing and how he hasn't valued guard. Now, just to get this out of the way, but a lot of people I think a lot of people were more down in terms of analysts because it's like, I guess they assume he might play tackle for us. Chris Greer said in his press conference that he's going to play guard. And he was a first-team All-American before they switched him to tackle at Arizona at a very young age, by the way. I think it was, I don't know if it was his freshman year, but it was at least his second year in college. So he's going to play guard, which is his best position. He's a phenomenal run blocker. He's a great athlete, so he can do the things we love to do in space with screens and outside runs, which is what we love to do. So he's great at that. The thing that I love the most about him, he is very talented, and you can just see it. He's a natural guard, but he's durable, which I think is very important. And Mike said it perfectly in the press conference about him. Like he's really good in pass protection and can create a pocket you can step up into. This is going to give Tua more confidence, make him more comfortable in the pocket, and is going to elevate his game as a quarterback because he is a pocket passer, and he's had a below average to average offensive line his entire career here. And now he's on the interior offensive line. He has 3 really good players with Jonah, Brewer, and Jackson coming over from Pittsburgh. So, he was. So this is the best thing that could have happened for the Dolphins. It was easily worth the trade. It makes them a better football team right away and makes this offense a whole lot better. And I'm so excited to see this team play now. These 2 picks are great, dude. This is exactly what the Dolphins needed. It's actually a godsend that they were able to get Jonah, who's a first-round talent at guard. So, and Gray Zabel, I just remembered his name. I actually like Jonah more as a player. I think he's a better guard. And I think he's way more gifted and has higher ceiling. So, and that's who a lot of people had the Dolphins picking in the first round. I think they got a better player in the second round. So I think it was worth the third-round pick easy. I'm so excited to see this team with a good offensive line for the first time and how creative Mike McDaniel is with the run game. It's going to be awesome. So this is an A++++++ pick. This is exactly what I wanted as a fan. And the trade doesn't bother me at all. I think this is a phenomenal step in the right direction. These first 2 picks make me so happy. And like I said, really elevates this football team. And, Devon Achane, Jalen Wright, and Tua are going to be very happy with I'm so excited for the season after this pick. I know a guard probably shouldn't hype people up this much, but it does. I mean, this is something the Dolphins have needed for a long time. And just to correct myself, because I was like, I messed it up. James Daniels, guard from Pittsburgh. I don't know why I said Jackson. But, yeah, this is just great. I'm so happy. I'm just like, they did the right thing. They made it the logical and a great player, great value. So, A+ for Jonah. Like I said, and I'm excited to see what kind of season 2 it has behind this offensive line. It's very, very exciting. So we go to we go all the way to the 5th round. The Dolphins made a trade with Houston. They acquire a 3rd-round pick in next year's draft. They trade down. So that was a great trade. I actually think that was a good trade. I don't remember who they could have gotten in the 4th round at that position, like who was on the board. So, I mean, you could, we'll see. Like the draft, you never know. I mean, but I don't know. They acquire more picks next year. Pretty high value pick for 4-4-3. So to me, it was good. Anyway, the Dolphins don't select until the 5th round, and they select Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle, Maryland. Another great, and I think he can actually play his rookie season and add him to the rotation. Everybody, I'm not going to sit here and act like I watched a lot of Maryland because I didn't, but according to the analysts, that he's a great nose tackle, which is exactly what the Dolphins need and want there. And the best thing that he does is defend the run, and he was really good at that at Maryland. And if you watch him play, now I didn't watch him play in like real time. If you see some of the highlights of his, and you can see that. So another great run defender who's a bigger player, who's a nose, and it gives the Dolphins a lot of depth and flexibility there and rotation. And it makes the defensive line better. This defensive line, after this draft, has a very high ceiling to be a very dominant front seven, which is great. And you win. Everybody, it's the old cliche. You win the game in the trenches. Richmond Webb, shout out to Richmond Webb, tweeted that, which I loved when this draft was going on. And I think that was the theme of this draft. And they added another one, and Jordan Phillips, another bigger player. This defensive line is going to be big and dominant upcoming. This is the biggest, most talented defensive line in terms of like both sides that the Dolphins have had in a very long time. I actually think maybe like when we broke the sack record with Vic Fangio, or at least the franchise record, you could argue that we had more depth at pass rusher, I guess. But it's pretty close. I mean, we have Chop, who's coming off the bench in rotation. Obviously, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb and Quentin Bell, who had a good season last year. But this, I think, as an all-around run defense, pass rush defensive line, this is more talented than that defensive line. And so from when it comes to run defense and pass rush, they have a chance to be really special. So I really like this pick, Jordan Phillips. Again, not a lot of sack production, but that's not why they drafted him. They drafted him to be a nose tackle, and he's really, really good at that. And again, a great Ravens type of a player. So I love that pick too. I didn't hate it at all. This is the first pick. The next pick in the 5th round, with the 150th pick, the Dolphins selected Jason Marshall Jr., corner out of Florida. When I watched him play, and I guess if you watch with like college football, you're gonna watch a lot of SEC football. If you're I would say, like, I don't really love college football, but I watch. I guess throughout this year you do watch a lot of SEC football. So apparently had a pretty good Senior Bowl, which is good. He got beat a lot in college by faster players. Very smart player, according to articles and what coaches have said about him. So that's good. But if you watch him play, I wonder if the Dolphins will try him at safety. Because he isn't a great outside prospect because of his speed and lack thereof speed. But since he's such a smart player, and his interception, he's terrible ball skills. So out of all the picks in this draft, I feel like this is the worst one. He doesn't have great hands, not really much of a playmaker. According to people, he's got good man coverage skills, which I think is good. He's either going to be a slot corner or a safety, I think, in the NFL. I don't think the Dolphins are going to play him on the outside. And if it comes to that, then we're in really deep trouble. So I'm interested to see what they do with him. I don't think he's an outside corner. Then the Dolphins, and another 3 5th round picks, select Dante Trader Jr. out of Maryland. Now, this player I like a lot. Not the greatest athlete in the world, but the differences between him and Jason Marshall Jr. is 5 career interceptions at Maryland. I thought he had 3 in one game, but I guess I was wrong. Really reminded me of Jordan Poyer. Not a great athlete, but he's always in the right spot. Great hands. He jumped, all of his interceptions, one of them was like overthrown, but most of them he jumped the route. So he's got great instincts. He's a very good tackler, which is good. I maybe not very good, but he's a good tackler. So this guy has a lot of potential. Smart player. So again, he reminds me of, not a great athlete, but reminds me of Jordan Poyer. I don't really know. We'll see what he is in the NFL. So it's kind of it was a need. He has things to like about him. Great instincts. Good box safety. How many TFLs did he have? Only 3 career TFLs. It's not great. I mean, he's a 5th round pick for a reason, but great hands. When the ball was thrown his way, he made the most of it. So I don't know. You can see it when you watch him play, I think, is the best way to describe it. He didn't look terrible, and we'll see what the Dolphins can do with him. I think they're still... I would love to know how much they're leading on McMorris, who had a great preseason last year as a rookie out of Cal. Didn't really play that much last year, but looked the part. I'm interested to see how much do the Dolphins believe in him as a prospect, because he did show it last year. And if he does develop, then that would be a godsend, because the secondary right now is very bleak, very bleak. We really don't have any playmaker. I would say stars or above average players. They don't have anybody there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they address that. I think that's the one major criticism of this draft, but you can't have it all. And I think so we'll move on. To one of my favorite picks in the draft, Ollie Gordon Jr., the second. This player is so interesting. He could actually be like a great NFL player. He has that kind of potential. His second year at Oklahoma State, he had 2,000 yards from scrimmage. He had 1,700 rushing yards, averaged 6 yards a carry an attempt. He averaged 123 yards a game. He was a dominant receiving running back. He's 6'2". He doesn't look like it. Like if I just showed you a picture of him, or even just a clip of him running straight, you'd be like, how is this guy this good in the passing game? He had 21 touchdowns in 2023. That's just rushing, by the way. He didn't have that many receiving, he only had one. But his receiving yards, he had 324 receiving yards. That's crazy, dude. Those are crazy, crazy numbers. He's 6'2", giant running back. He does run high, which it's always awkward looking. Like another guy I can compare him to that runs like him is Brian Robinson, but I think he's more gifted in terms of, he's like Najee Harris. He's a big running back, but he's so smooth in the pass game. I don't understand it. I don't understand how this man is as good as he's got great hands too. For a running back, very interesting prospect. His last year at Oklahoma was not as productive. He only had 880 yards rushing. He didn't run the ball nearly as much his last year. His receiving yards were still pretty good. He had 1,000 yards from scrimmage still. He had 226 receiving yards. He averaged about 73. We went from 123 yards a game to 73 yards a game. And I should have mentioned this. He had 80 receptions his career at Oklahoma State, which is really good. His last year at 29. The year before that, his best year, he had 39 receptions. I love this player. I think he's going to really help us out in the red zone. And I'm interested to see how Mike uses him in the passing game, because he is such a big target. So he can do a lot of stuff for the Dolphins in the passing game and the run game. He's good in pass protection because he's so big. So he can get on the field really early as a rookie. Now, we know that, especially when Jalen Wright got here, and Devon Achane has talked about this, how complicated this offense is. So I don't know how, and we know how Mike doesn't like to use rookies. So I don't know how much he's going to get on the field. But he's very talented, and I think he has a really, really bright future as a Dolphin. And, this kind of production is crazy to get in the 5th round. He just looks awkward. I think maybe that's why he dropped so far. It doesn't look right. He kind of reminds me of LeGarrette Blount in that way. Like, he's not the weird thing about him is when he gets downhill and runs, he's really fast. Like, his startup speed isn't great, but he does have good speed in the open field. It just looks awkward, I guess is the best way to describe it. Great power back. There's a great play, him versus Kansas State, where he literally just runs a man over like he was a child. So this guy's going to be able to really help in the red zone. And behind this offensive line that's much better, I'm excited to see him in the fourth quarter of games, like really be able to bring that physical dimension for the Dolphins. I'm excited to watch him in preseason and obviously in the season. It's going to be really fun. I'm excited to see how well he does right away, because he is very talented. So this is a great pick for me. Great value, and I loved it. So another great someone who can contribute in the 5th round is at that high of level and has that high of a ceiling is a huge W. So let's move on to, he was a 6th round pick, by the way. Excuse me. I don't know why I said 5th. It's even better. I don't know why why did he fall so far? I don't know. I don't know. Quinn Ewers was the next pick, the 7th round, the 231st pick for the Miami Dolphins. So this is where things get wild. I do not like Quinn Ewers. I was a huge, I watched a lot of Texas games last year because obviously they were a contender and they were on TV a lot. But I just never really liked him. Not the biggest fan of his, but I know a lot of people out there love him. I guess love isn't the word, but, or at least people were surprised that he fell this far, I guess. But I really wasn't. You know, I think some of the negatives about him is just his movement in the pocket isn't great. Even though he's a good athlete, which is weird. Like, he has the ability to do it. Like, he's not going to rush for 10 yards, but he can move in the pocket, and he has the ability, at least he has the athleticism to do that. It's not like he's like a Ryan Mallett, who's like incapable, or Joe Flacco, for that matter, who's just like a statue and just is big and doesn't really move that well, like much or well, even though Joe Flacco could move a little bit, I guess, but he's not Ryan Mallett, is basically what I'm saying. He has the ability to move in the pocket. He just didn't do it all that well in college. And, you know, people have brought this up, but his inconsistency of throwing the football and, you know, for a pocket passer, that's not great. You know, I think Colt McCoy, who said this about him, is like, the amount of like go balls that have been picked off from free safeties with him is a little alarming. You know, the ball, some of those interceptions, it looks like the ball sails on him. I wouldn't say he's the greatest decision maker in the world, which isn't great either. His production at Texas is great though. He had 31 touchdowns to only 12 interceptions. He played through an injury, a pretty bad one to his oblique. And what I really found interesting, though, I think this is like the saving grace, even though I don't love him as a quarterback, because he's not a great athlete. Well, he doesn't use his athleticism well in the pocket. His pocket presence isn't great. Him throwing the football is inconsistent. But I will say this. He was a number one recruit out of high school. He did play through an oblique injury, which would affect you throwing the football. Like, that's not a fake Tyreek Hill injury. That's a real injury that he played through. He did beat out Archie Manning when he could have transferred. He stayed and beat him out in camp, which I don't know how much people want to put into that, but he did. And a lot of analysts that I like said that he would have been a way higher pick if he was more consistent. And they think, some people brought up the fact that he doesn't drive the football well, but pre-injury, according to the analysts that I like, there was more explosion in his arm, with his arm talent. Like, he has really good arm talent, but it just wasn't consistent due to the injury, and sometimes I guess he just doesn't drive the football. But there are great moments of him throwing the football. Like, you can, like, even though I don't love him as a prospect, you can see why he was a number one recruit out of high school, and he had great moments and great games against high level competition. Like, his Alabama game is great. Some of the games in the playoffs are great versus Michigan. Like, he's had great games. So the pro comparison that I've seen some people compare him to is Chad Pennington. There is a chance that he becomes a good player in the NFL, which is, I think, a good thing. And, a lot of people don't like Zach Wilson. So one thing I will say, this pick, even though I didn't love him as a prospect compared to players like Dylan Gabriel or Jalen Milroe, who I think are more physically gifted and just fit today's NFL better, I still am interested to see where he goes, because he's not like Mike White, where he can't move in the pocket and make throws on the run. He did that in college. It just wasn't consistent. So he has it in him. He's an interesting prospect, I will say. I'm excited to see what he does in preseason. This is the most interesting preseason in a long time in Miami. You have Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers, so it's going to be pretty fun. I'm excited to see what they can do in preseason. It's an interesting pick, I'll say that. So, even though I don't love him, getting him in the 7th round, it's like, whatever. Like, it's rare that you get a quarterback of his caliber in the 7th round. So, value-wise, this is great. And if he can get healthy, if we got a Chad Pennington in the 7th round, that's a massive W. And if the oblique injury really affected him that much, where if he played healthy, he could have been a 2nd-round pick. This is a great, like I said, great value. So overall, my thoughts on this draft, and again, a lot was riding on this draft. I'm gonna get probably I think I gave last year a C or C plus or something like that. Last year's draft. This to me is an A. I loved this draft. This is one of my favorite classes in a long time. I think Kenneth Grant, Jonah are going to be, like, especially Jonah, is going to really help this team in this franchise immediately. And I think that they went from, like, okay, where is this, like, what is this team, like a fringe okay team, to a playoff, legitimate playoff contender. And I think can easily make the playoffs with the way that the offense is. And the biggest question mark now is the secondary. And I think that's probably the biggest criticism of this you could have with this draft is the guys that they did get are, like, even Jason Marshall Jr. is not gonna fix anything. Like, that doesn't fix anything. So I guess that's the argument, but they fixed the biggest problem in them. Like, they got 2 defensive tackles that are gonna play in the scheme, that are great scheme fits, that are gonna make an impact, and just they got bigger in the trenches. And that's the biggest issue with this team since Mike McDaniel got here, since Tua's been here, is that's been a problem. And now Tua's got a really good offensive line, which he has never had. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, what about Patrick Paul? I love Patrick Paul. I loved what I saw from him in his rookie season. So I guess I'm a little bit different on that. But I cannot wait, because Patrick Paul's a great run defender too. And this is going to be fun to finally see a good offensive line and see what Mike McDaniel can do with it. So this is, to me, A+ draft class. I loved it. Addressed a lot of the issues. Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips. It's funny that, obviously Dolphins have had Jordan Phillips before, but they didn't draft those guys to be Aaron Donald. Like, to be, okay, we want you to rush the passer and be dominant. They drafted him to win the line of scrimmage on first and second down, and they were exceptional at that in college. So, and that fits what the Ravens love to do and the type of players the Ravens like to have. And that's exactly what kind of scheme we're running in Miami right now. So I could not be more happy with this draft. I really liked it. It was a meat and potatoes draft, and I thought the guys that they got to play those positions are great. And even Jonah's a great scheme fit. Like, he fits what the Dolphins want to do, and he's a mauler. So, and Jackson, God, why do I keep calling him Jackson? Why do I keep calling him Jackson? Jerome? It's not Jerome. I keep forgetting his name now. His PFF grade in the run game, he was ranked the best run blocking guard in the NFL before his injury last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm awful with, I don't know why I'm forgetting. I used to be pretty good at this, remembering all the names, but James Daniels. All of those, and Brewer too is a great run defender. And it's going to make them better at screens, which they love to run. Anyway, great draft class. I mean, this gets me so much more excited for the season. Because, like, before the draft, I was like, like, it wasn't looking great. Let's just put it that way. But I loved this draft class. And I think it makes the Dolphins a better football team. So, and I'm excited to see what Tua does this year. So that's going to be it, guys. Now, they have a lot of issues they got to have to... the secondary is a huge question mark. And they have, like, locker room question marks. Like, what kind of Tyreek Hill... When I say locker room question marks, I don't think... Like, you see people say, oh, Mike McDaniel is in a... According to every beat writer and everybody around the organization, the Mike McDaniel isn't the problem. They respect him as a head coach. Even Omar Kelly has written about this. He's the most cynical man on the planet. So that I'm not worried about. It's like what kind of season are they going to get out of Tyreek Hill? They're getting rid of Jalen Ramsey, which is a good thing because he's been kind of toxic since he's gotten here. So it's like, what are we going to get out of Tyreek Hill? I think is the biggest question mark on the offensive side of the football now, which is great. Getting Westbrook, Keeney from the Tennessee Titans, he has a great upside as well. He's a bigger receiver. Great red zone guy, scored a ton of touchdowns last year. I'm excited to see what he does in Miami. So the offense is I think, a lot better, and they still have Jonnu Smith as well. So the offense I think is going to be fun again, which is great. And I think even better, I think this is the best offensive unit Mike has had because of the offensive line, and they can actually dominate people up front now. So again, it just gets me more excited for the season, and we'll see what they do to put Band-Aids on the secondary, because it's probably the best that they can do at this point. And we'll see how that shakes out. Maybe the Dolphins can make some kind of crazy out of this world trade. Doubtful, but we'll see. So that's it. Great draft. Super happy with it. And I'll see you guys in the next one.